Coming up on today's show, more Jaguar I-Pace reviews hit the net, Renault invests €1 billion in EV production, and in California, EVgo upgrades more than 20 fast chargers. Hello and welcome to the Friday the 15th of June edition of EV News Daily. It's Martyn Lee here, and with the news you need to know about electric cars and the move towards sustainable transport. So if you missed yesterday's show, by the way, slight tweak to the format, news first, and then I'm trying to include more from the community, from online, from socials, from the emails we get in the YouTube comments, and trying to do that after the news that we do. So if you just want the news, you can pause after that, and if you want to get involved, and we'd love to hear from you as well, by the way, if you have any feedback or comments on the stories we talk about on the show, or indeed the community part at the end, it would be good if you stick around for that. But to kick off with the news, if you remember a week or so ago, the first batch of iPace reviews hit the internet from the largest video and magazine channels, really. Well, now it seems the next wave of reviews have hit the net. This time the big websites that I like to look at, anyway, certainly the EV ones and the car ones, it seemed they all appeared today, so there must have been some sort of embargo lifted. We'll start with Seth, who writes for Electrek, and we'll start there because it's the only real EV blog that I've seen today that got a chance to go to Portugal to drive the Jaguar I-Pace, and also because it's just one of my favourite websites to look at. One of 20 writers at this event, says Seth, and he says, I noticed that I was one of the only folks with EV experience. While its 240-mile, 400-horsepower, all-wheel drive electric drivetrain certainly screams SUV, its actual body shape, the internal space, and the ride make it feel more like a sedan. If anything, it feels closest to the Tesla Model 3 inside, especially with its glass roof, but that's beyond a stretch, calling it a Model X killer. Jaguar has beautiful and tasteful buttons, knobs and a small screen, while Tesla's Spartan interior UI is simply a large touchscreen with two simple knobs on the steering wheel. The official charging rate of the I-Pace, and this is new information for me, by the way, the official charging rate of the I-Pace is 100 kilowatts. We knew that. But Seth was told that a future over-the-air update software update could push charging rates over 110 kilowatts and near 120 kilowatts. No one's going to mistake the I-Pace, he says, for a Tesla unless they are fresh out of ideas and need some clickbait. Ouch! Oh, that stings. But he's kind of right, because a lot of the other websites that I've read today do compare it to a Tesla Model X. And he's absolutely right as well. When you see a Jaguar I-Pace up close, it's lower, it's more squat than it looks in some of the pictures. There's going to be a Jaguar I-Pace racing series supporting Formula E at the end of this year. And you can't do a racing series full of big, tall SUVs. It makes sense now that you think about it. Oh yeah, they're going to be racing cars that are going to go well on the track. And that's when you see the Jaguar I-Pace, you go, okay, right, don't compare it to a Model X. Very, very different. But lots of people do. On to Engadget. They say one of the most important additions is support for over-the-air updates. While a majority of the features in the I-Pace are cribbed from other Jags and Land Rovers, this one's clearly borrowed from Tesla. Musk's company set a precedent with over-the-air updates, and it's good to see other automakers following suit. Consumers are used to seeing their other tech devices update without having to visit a service centre. There's no reason the biggest computer they own shouldn't do it as well. End quote on the Engadget article. By the way, do I need to seek help when non-EV blogs write about the I-Pace and don't put it in capital letters? I probably do need to get some help about that, right? But that's what the car is called. It's capital I hyphen capital PACE. Yeah, you're right. I'm overthinking it, aren't I? But you can tell the car blogs and the non-car blogs because they don't get it right. ArsTechnica. We should move on before I burst a blood vessel. The Jaguar I-Pace, spelt incorrectly. Well, spelt correctly, just not right. Must be the most significant new car we'll drive this year, says ArsTechnica. Heat management was a key concern, and there are actually 3 separate cooling systems. One for the cabin, one for the battery, and a third just for the control electronics. Well, the batteries, they say, are happiest between 30 and 40. Bit warmer than I thought, actually. I thought the batteries like to be about 20 degrees. Under the European WLTP cycle, the I-Pace has been rated 400 kilometres of range. The more accurate EPA test hasn't been done yet. They're saying around 240 miles would be a good number on a full charge. ArsTechnica say that as with every other EV we've tested, you can change the iPace's regen braking setting from high to low. Set to high, you can really drive it with just the accelerator pedal, as it'll decelerate with a vigor when you lift your foot. In fact, it will pull 0.4 G just on regen, and I think for comparison, the Leaf can do it at 0.2 G. Active sound design is a thing that we saw a little bit about with the iPace on their reveal video. But ArsTechnica talk about that more. There's different settings you can have when you're driving the iPace. You can set the sound to calm, and the car's speakers will, in addition to playing music or the radio, they will do active noise cancellation like you get with those fancy headphones, and that increases the serenity of your journey. Or you can switch the noise to dynamic. This will augment all those normal EV sounds you get, the whizzes, with a bit more oomph if you floor the accelerator. The writer says, I'm hard-pressed to describe the sound, which falls somewhere between a turbine and a growl. Sure, it's artificial, but it's also kind of awesome. I can't also tell you, that's the end of the article. They're just the highlights that I've pulled out of those 3 articles. All 3, by the way, brilliantly written, really long. There's nothing worse than when you read a review and they go, yeah, so they flew us to this location. These are the pros, these are the cons. On the whole, not too bad. You're like, that's 3 paragraphs. They've flown you to Portugal. Honestly, all 3 reviews, super good. I'll put and super long as well, get really in depth. I'll put a link to all of them in the show notes. All right, let's move on to Renault now. And Renault will invest more than €1 billion, 1.2 billion US dollars, to increase EV production capacity in France and add new models, the car maker said yesterday. According to Reuters, the Zoe production line in Flins, west of Paris, is going to double its maximum output with the battery-powered subcompact's next upgrade. The company said in a statement, and it's Northern, I don't know how you say this name in French, DOUAI factory will tool up to build electric cars on a new architecture shared with Japanese affiliate Nissan. End quote. I promise I've not been drinking today, by the way. I just can't say my words. Well, Renault chairman and chief exec Carlos Ghosn said this, and I quote, the acceleration of our investments in France for electric vehicles will increase the competitiveness and attractiveness of our French individual sites. End quote. Well, the Cléon plant will triple its electric motor production, where they make the motors, the capacity of it at least, while the Maubeuge in eastern France facility receives tooling investment for the next Kangoo, including the electric version of their van, said Renault. I've put a full link to the autonews.com article in the show notes. If you have anything to say about that article, let us know in the comments, or you can email hello@evnewsdaily.com. Well, staying with Renault, meanwhile, Electrans has more news on Renault, as they've partnered with a number of European utilities and international car makers to join the Flex-E project, an initiative to expand high-power charging facilities all across the continent. Well, the extra urban network will comprise high-power stations with a capacity of between 150 kilowatts and 350 kilowatts, located along motorways and expressways. Alongside Renault and Enel, partners include EDF, the Engadget and Verbund, Nissan and eBill. And eBill is a Spanish company specialising in EV charging services. Well, Auto News go on to say that the Flex-E network, which is one of the few networks being built here in Europe, will join that of the Electric Vehicle Arteries project. It's co-financed by the European Commission, and it's going to support 180 fast charge points and fast recharge plus, built over 3 years along Italian extra urban corridors. There's 40 fast stations already roamed to Milan. Italy's going to do another 7,000 stations across the country by 2020, doubling it by 2022. Big investment going on in charging. Here's a question. Do you think that some of the European makers have got together in order to try and do their own supercharging I know they obviously are doing their own network, but to be seen by the public as having a supercharger network like Tesla's got. Now, undoubtedly, Tesla's network is good all around the world, better in North America than it is anywhere else. Really good here in the UK, good in Europe. But do you think the European manufacturers are all clubbing together to try and combat that so that they can all use one network of CCS chargers and try and win over the public opinion that they haven't got to worry about charging. I think that's probably the case, actually. I think the supercharging network has really given them a kick up the backside. Well, one of the regional variations around the world is the ePower drivetrain. Now, Nissan use it in Japan, and it first appeared on the small minivan, the Nissan Note, in 2017, last year, and in Q1 of this year, it was Japan's best-selling vehicle. In fact, 70% of all Notes sold have the ePower drivetrain. And now Nissan is contemplating bringing ePower to other markets. Will we see it in North America? Will we see it in Europe? Well, Nissan could just move forward with pure electric cars. After all, they've got the world's most popular EV in the Leaf. 300,000 of them on the roads. But all car makers have one eye on the impending new CO2 targets. Again, this is being driven by Europe, but of course, when somewhere like California, which is in itself a massive economy, and when somewhere like Europe puts a rule in, just as when California has certain emissions rules, it affects the rest of the world. And when Europe has a certain CO2 target, it just affects the rest of the world. There's no point having separate cars for Europe. They're going to come into force from 2020, and they're based on the emissions. So the new rules here are based on the emissions of your entire fleet of cars that you sell. But what is ePower, you might be wondering? Well, it's similar to the range extenders in the things like the BMW i3, which everyone understands, but it is subtly different. The car comes with a small gas engine, which can work in its optimal rev range. Again, so the engine's working more efficiently, not going up and down that rev range, trying to find that peak torque on the curve all the time. So it's most efficient, and it works as purely as a generator. The generator charges the batteries, and the motors, the electric motors, are what drives the wheels. So there's no connection between the little 1.4 litre, I think, generator engine and the wheels, which are always driven by electric power. You never plug it in. Well, there's no plug. You can't plug them in. Now, Nissan say we can do a 48 volt mild hybrid, or we can do a plug-in hybrid. But what's most interesting right now is the success we've had with ePower technology. That was the VP of Product Planning talking there to Automotive News Europe. He says ePower in Japan makes more money than Note ever made before we launched ePower. It's an economies of scale thing. It's a favourable equation. We need to invest in this technology and bring it to markets outside of Japan. Now, Nissan said it will bring ePower to the US. It is coming to the USA. Only on higher-end vehicles, though. The technology is going to form a big part of Nissan's electrification of the Infinity lineup. That's going to be from 2021 onwards. So what do you think? Even though you're putting dinosaurs into it, not electrons, it is 15% more efficient under the WLTP tests. I think it's really interesting technology, don't you? It's one of the things that it could strike a chord with buyers. I mean, Toyota, I don't know if you've seen some local Toyota ads where you are, but in this country, Toyota have been doing the groundwork, if you like, by running this TV campaign saying that their hybrids don't have to be plugged in because they can charge themselves, which, yeah, okay, that's not accurate, but I get what they're trying to say with that to the kind of person who doesn't currently drive an EV and are looking at the Toyota hybrid, which are lovely cars, and going, all right, I haven't got to plug that one in and it's a hybrid, oh, I'll buy that one. So maybe they're doing some of the groundwork for Nissan to come in and use that kind of shift in opinion. Maybe it's a stopgap. I see that the technology works really well, but you're still burning, aren't you? You're still burning fossil fuels. Saying that, when you look at the rapidly changing economies of batteries, right, I see it as a technology which might not be needed in the rest of the world. It's worked well for a couple of years. It might have 1 or 2 or 3 years of success, but by 2020 and by the mid-2020s, we know that pure electric cars are just going to be cheaper than any other form of propulsion, because the most expensive part of an EV is the battery, and the battery's the bit, and at cell level is really coming down very quickly, and at pack level is coming down as well. I'm not sure we're going to be seeing too much of this in the long term, of this ePower. Right, moving on to EVgo, and EVgo say they're making electric vehicle charging as easy as possible for all drivers, and today's news that they've added an extra 21 Californian stations. EVgo's network can now power more EVs than ever, they say. All of their new chargers have dual standards, both CHAdeMO or and CCS combo at every location. 10 in San Francisco, 5 in San Diego, and 6 in Los Angeles. Kathy Zoy, the CEO of EVgo, says this, and I quote, "The old world is changing, and EVgo is rapidly expanding our network of over 1,000 public fast chargers across the US so that more Americans can choose a better way to drive," end quote. Well, the CCS combo connectors used by things like the Chevy Bolts, the BMW i3, and numerous other existing and forthcoming EV models in North America, also in Europe and Asia as well. CHAdeMO connectors, commonly used by the Nissan Leaf, the Kia Soul EV, and with an adapter, you can charge your Tesla on CHAdeMO. The 21 station upgrades from EVgo throughout California now have the capabilities to charge either, though, at high speeds. Find out more at evgo.com. Well, will plugging in an electric car melt your local grid? Will you be able to make a cup of coffee whilst charging a car? Or will it send us back to the dark ages as we're all lighting fires to see in the dark? Well, the electrification of road transport will only result in a 10% increase in demand for electricity. And that's by 2050, according to the latest projections the government have been told, as reported by Utility Week. Richard Harrington told a committee of the government that the national grid has expressed confidence about the ability to power networks once the mass switch over to EVs happens. And Richard Bruce, who is the Director of Energy and Technology and Innovation for the Department of Transport, said that the UK has one of the best public infrastructures for charging in Europe. I wonder how many EV listeners right now would agree with him, or whether it could be better. Do you think he drives an EV himself? Okay, let's get into the community part of the podcast right now. And a few things we want to get through today. First of all, hi to Ryan. Now, Ryan Hoffman has been making a few comments about the podcast lately and sent me an email yesterday to say that the other day we were talking about VW not having been fined in Europe, and then he says, here's the link to their big fine. Yes, it was literally the day after I said that VW hadn't been fined. The Germans fined VW quite a lot of money, about €1 billion, for... I'll be very careful what I say. VW they've not broken the law. The public prosecutor in Germany issued an administrative order against VW. They imposed what they could, which was the maximum fine of €5 million. Then they imposed a fine of €995 million for what they call the disgorgement of economic benefits. In other words, they didn't get the tax benefits, I guess. I'm trying to paraphrase, but the German economy didn't get the benefits of what VW did wrong. I think that's what they're saying with that. It refers to the repayment of profits accrued through unethical means. So again, they've done nothing wrong. What was interesting was that VW put their hands up straight away. I mean, it was all in agreement. They knew the fine was coming, and they said, yes, we've agreed to pay this €1 billion fine. If this puts an end to any further proceedings in Europe, we're very sorry we did it. They've got a new head at VW, and Herbert Diess is certainly trying to draw a line in the sand to go, there you go, there's your €1 billion. Very, very sorry. That's it now in Europe. We admit that we were a bit naughty. We didn't break the law, but we were a bit naughty. Here's the fine. Interesting that money, of course, will be going into the coffers of the Germans and nobody else in Europe that was affected by those VWs seeing a penny of that. I don't want to go too deep into this story, apart from saying that clearly it's more bad headlines and it just helps EVs and the story of electric vehicles. And let's just forget diesel. Let's draw a line under diesel itself as well. Well, also, Ryan mentioned an event happening, a conference, if you like, in Portland, Oregon next week. He says, I'm not affiliated with it in any way, but a quick shout out to the listeners here in the Northwest could generate some interest and some reports back to you on the event. The website is evroadmapconference.com. That is evroadmapconference.com. Sponsored by Uber and Honda and PGE by the look of it. It's going to be on the 19th and 20th of June. Sold out in 2017. 600 participants taking part in that. The nation's largest and most advanced annual conference on electric and smart mobility, held every summer, says the website, in the Pacific Northwest. Its roadmap includes nearly 100 national and international speakers. Sounds like a great event. I'm more than happy to promote that for you. Ryan, thank you so much for your email. Another thing that happened on Twitter yesterday was we hit 150 podcasts, and I said that we're at this number now. And Andy Hall said that he's only up to episode 66. He's working his way through them. But I ordered my Kia Soul EV and discovered your podcast on the same day. Tomorrow, the Mazda goes to be sold. 2 weeks of holiday, and then from early July, I'll be listening to the podcast on electrons only. Congratulations, Andy, to making the move to electric power. Talking of someone that needs some help, we had a tweet. I saw a tweet from Tim. Now, Tim Shearer said, I'm not going to be driving my Kia Soul EV, for a couple of weeks. Should I leave it at 50% battery charge? Now, I'd always been told that 80% was a good state of charge to leave it for any period of time, but that now sounds like it's just things that I've read over the years. That sounds like it's way too much. Brian Weatherall replied to say the general advice, if you're leaving your EV for a long period of time, for lithium batteries really, between 30 and 80%. Brian goes bang in the middle at 50%. Good shout. Thank you for your feedback. Oh, talking of Brian, by the way, Brian Weatherall here in the UK runs the UK Nissan Leaf Owners Group. So it's a good chance, as he's been chatting to me on Twitter, for me to give a little mention on their Facebook group. If you own a Leaf or interested in Nissan Leafs and you're not yet a member of that group, find them on Facebook. He says, I was chatting to him on Twitter today, actually, and he says there's a lot of buzz on the group about a software update for the 30 kilowatt hour Leaf. It's supposed to fix a problem with the car, showing lower range and lower battery health than the true figure. We've had some have had it done during a service, but no official recall in the UK. And he sent me a report from cleanfleetreport.com. That's cleanfleetreport.com with some more details on that. Brian, thank you so much. And I will go and join your group as well to see what you guys and girls are all talking about. Well, if you too would like to spread the word about electric cars, why not share the podcast with any groups that you are part of or any socials that you may be able to do, and we can both spread the word about EVs. And if you too are catching up with old ones, all previous 150 episodes are online. They're on there for free. They always will be on there for free. They're on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, the blog, which is evnewsdaily.com. If you subscribe, then you get them first and free and automatically. Oh, and if you can rate and review on your favourite platform, you know how much these things help. On the socials, search for EV News Daily on Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you tomorrow.